All right, part two. Got to start with number 25. So we're going to break these down into bite-sized pieces. I see that there's an 18 there, so I'm going to make that 9 and 2. And I see that this is a perfect square root. So if I went the square root of x to the 8th and I just followed my instructions, that won't be too bad. But let's break this down a little bit. The square root of 9 is 3. The square root of 2 is going nowhere. What is 8 divided by 2? In other words, you got to think of it like that because that's what I taught you. And that equals x to the 4th. Now, how do I rearrange this so it looks very algebra-ish? 3x to the 4th, square root of 2. You put your oil together, and then your water comes last. All right, look for your Christmas present. There it is. There's an invisible 2 as an index. So the top would be x to the 4 over 2, which is just x squared. So I'm going to take a second, and I'm going to rewrite it. And remember a little jingle. Remember, there's an invisible 2 there. And you have to think bottom bigger, bottom bigger. In other words, I got to make this number bigger. What's the first number bigger than 5 that 2 will go into? Well, that'd be 6. That tells me I only need to add 1. And then I add 1 to both top and bottom. Now, the bottom actually turns into the square root of y to the 6th. So what is 6 divided by 2? That's 3, so that's y cubed. And that's what's going to go in the bottom. And then the top, I got some oil and water. I'm just going to mix them without mixing them, if you know what I mean. And there'd be my answer. All right, now 27 is just a nasty little math problem. It's just got a lot of moving parts. But we got to look for the Christmas presents, and there's 2 of them. So we got the cubic root of 27, which is just 3. And we have the cubic root of b cubed, which is just b. So I'm going to get rid of that. I understand that these 2 parts are going to be part of my answer. I need to concentrate on the top here and the bottom. But honestly, the cubic root of a is going nowhere. And I'm not even worried about it. That's an a, not a 9. So really, out of all that, the only thing I need to worry about is this. And we've already done a problem very similar to this earlier. In the cubic root world, if there's a perfect square, take advantage of it by writing it as the product of 2 times 2. Why? Because now I need to only add, whoops, sorry about that one, this. Because what's the cubic root of 2 times the cubic root of 2 times the cubic root of 2? Technically, it's the cubic root of 8, which is just 2. That's why the roots fly off. So I get another 2 in the denominator, and I get another cubic root of 2 in the numerator. Now, earlier I said that we took care of the Christmas presents. We had this, this, and this, but now we got to slam that up against that stuff. So if I put the numerators together, I would get 3 cubic root of 2a all over 2b. Just a lot going on there. All right, let's go on to this one. This one's not quite as bad. Cubic root of 375, that would break down into 125 and 3. And remember the little jingle over here? We said bottom bigger, bottom bigger. Well, the opposite is true if it's in the numerator. We want to ask ourselves, what's the first number less than 11 that 3 goes into? Because we're going to break that off, and that would be 9. And so now we have a perfect cubic root here, and then we ask ourselves, if I take 9 away from 11, there's going to be 2 left. Now what's the cubic root of 125? 5. What's the cubic root of a to the 9th? Well, 9 divided by 3 is 3, so it'd be a cubed. Now this is my oil. That's what always comes out in front. And there's some water, and there's some water. So I'm going to combine the water, and it's going to be 3a squared. All right, up to 29. Square root of 72 is 36 and 2. 32 is 16 and 2. This would turn into 6 square root of 2. This is 4 square root of 2. And that's like 6x plus 4x. So that's 10 square root of 2. They're just like radicals. Square root of 7, going nowhere. Square root of 49, that's just 7. Square root of 343 is 49 times 7. That took me a while. That's why I had to pause the video. And 49 times 7 is 7 square root of 7. That's not an easy one. So here I got some like terms. I got 7 square root of 7 and 1 square root of 7. So that's 8 square root of 7 plus 7. Done with that one. Now the way I showed this one in class is don't worry about getting the radicals out of the basement yet. So I'm going to rewrite this as the square root of 3 over the square root of 2. See, we're looking for common denominators. I am going to break that down into 9 and 3, which is 3 square root of 3 over the square root of 2. Now remember, 1/7 plus 1/7 is 2/7. In other words, don't mess with the common denominator. So I'm not going to multiply these. I'm not going to add them. They just come along for the ride just like the 7 did. But in the numerator, that's where I need to add this. So 3 square root of 3 plus 1 square root of 3 is 4 square root of 3. Now I need to get the radical out of the basement by multiplying the top by the square root of 2 and the bottom by the square root of 2. So I end up getting 4 square root of 6, and then this, the roots fly off, over 2. Check your oil. So I get 2 square root of 6. All right. Number 32. Cubic root business. So I got 27 and 2. Cubic root of 40 is the cubic root of 8 times the cubic root of 5. 16 would be the cubic root of 8 times the cubic root of 2. So now that I've broken those all up, this would be 3 cubic root of 2. This would be 2 cubic root of 5. And this would be 2 cubic root of 2. And as you notice, these are like terms. So those together would give me 5 cubic root of 2 plus this non-like term, 2 cubic root of 5. 33, kind of a simple problem as long as you keep your oil and water consistent. So this one would turn into 3 square root of 4 square root of 3, which is 3 times 2 times the square root of 3, which is 6 square root of 3. Minus, because don't forget the minus, square root of 48, best way to go there is 16 and 3. So I'd get 4 square root of 3. And 6 square root of 3 minus 4 square root of 3 is 2 square root of 3. This is called the Mimi Special because in class we had that long story about Mimi. If we didn't, I apologize. But the bottom line is you're going to break the heart. So you're going to go this way, square root of 6 over the square root of 2 minus, now you go this way, square root of 24 over the square root of 2. This, because it's water and water, it can mix mathematically, so it just turns into the square root of 3. Same thing here. Turns into minus the square root of 12 because 2 goes into 24 12 times. Now the square root of 12 turns into 4 and 3, which turns into 2 square root of 3 with a minus in front of it. And then you've got the square root of 3 minus 2 square root of 3. Don't forget there's an invisible 1. So this is like 1x minus 2x, which would be negative 1 square root of 3, which you could just write it either way. Is fine. All right, 3 more problems. I think we can squeeze them in. Here comes another Mimi Special. So we're going to break it up by going this way first. Square root of 40 over the square root of 10 minus 2 square root of 5 all over the square root of 10. All right, this one might be a little more challenging, but let's take a look. Well, what's 40 divided by 10? Well, that would just be the square root of 4, which is just 2. Now this little rascal might take a little more work, but notice 5/10 reduces to 1/2. So I'm going to take a minute and rewrite this. I'm going to take that negative and put it right here so I don't forget it. But I'm going to rewrite this now as 2 square root of 1 all over the square root of 2 because 5/10 reduces to 1/2. You got to look for those. And now I'm just going to get the square root out of there. So it's 2 square root of 2 all over 2. Notice these 2's cancel. The only thing left is the square root of 2. So that would be my answer. All right. Number 36, look for Christmas present, Christmas present, Christmas present. I don't see any. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply. So I'm going to get the square root of 20x to the 6th, because there's an invisible 1 right there, and I add the 5 and the 1, minus the square root of 50x squared. Now there's a few Christmas presents. But let's go ahead and break them all down. Square root of 20 is the square root of 4 and the square root of 5, which is just 2 square root of 5. Now when I taught this to you, I said take the power, divide it by the index. So what's 6 divided by 2? That's 3, so it's x cubed. Now I'm going to rearrange this in a minute. Minus, don't forget it, bring it down. 50 is 25 and 2. And see, the square root of x squared is just x. So there's a 5, there's an x. So I'm going to rearrange those. 5x square root of 2. Now this one, if I rearrange it, would actually be 2x cubed square root of 5 minus 5x square root of 2. And the reason I transferred it into the answer spot is I could see that I wasn't going to get any like terms. All right, last one, guys. Look, if I multiply this, I could break down the square root of 12 right now, and I could break down the square root of 48 right now, but I noticed something. What's 3 times 12? See, I can mix those because that's water and water. That would be a nice little 36. So why would I waste my time breaking down the square root of 12? 3 times 12 is 36. What's the square root of 36? 6. So that's 18. That wasn't too bad. Now what about if I multiply it this way? Well, 3 times 48 is 144. That's something else we like. But don't forget the minus. That's a silly thing to forget, but it's easy to forget. 3 times 2 is 6. 48 times 3 is 144. And what's the square root of 144? That's 12. What's 6 times 12? 72. What's the answer to this? Negative 54. And that finishes your review. There's a lot going on for that practice test. So work at it. Seek me out or some friends if you have any questions.